Town Band Banter with Doc and Dave. Every week, two longtime friends and colleagues in the world of music, David Price and Donald Doc Smith, get together to discuss the triumphs as well as the twists and turns of lifelong learning for the dedicated members of thousands of civilian community music ensembles of every shape and size. Your comments and suggestions are always welcomed through email as info@townbandbanter.com, Facebook, Town Band Banter, and Instagram, #TownBandBanter. And now for our hosts, Doc and Dave.
All right, here we go, Dave, in episode 3.
Episode 3.
Can you imagine that?
Imagine that.
It's incredible.
Jeez,
and
amazing.
I want to start by thanking all the folks who have listened to the first couple episodes. I'm blown away with how many people have actually hit in the episode. And we actually got some comments already. And so that's starting to work. And a couple folks had some suggestions for episodes we could do in the future, and no one really had any questions yet, but I'm sure that will come in time.
I hope so.
And that's good. I think people are just enjoying it. That's what I'm getting. Those are the
nobody
comments I'm
said,
getting.
don't quit your day job or anything like that.
No, not yet, because I think we already covered that we're retired. So
yeah, that's right.
We already did that part of it. So today we have our first guest, and we're really excited to Dr. Sandra Enos here.
Can we applaud?
Yeah, of course we can, yeah. And we met her because she did something at the end of every concert with the Jamestown Community Band. I announced that it is a select ensemble, which means that anyone who selects to be in it is in it. That kind of selectivity. And she, I guess, took a deep breath and came up and talked to me and decided to try to give this a whirl. And we'll go into detail about, how that process all worked. But one of the reasons we wanted to have her on is because the topics we're trying to cover are right up her alley. Her doctorate's in sociology. She's a retired professor from Bryant University, and she taught a variety of courses there. And when we welcome you, and you could describe a little bit of what you've done in the past, and we'll get more into the detail of joining the band along the way. But let's talk sociology.
Sure. Well, thank you. Welcome to me. Thank you so much. And it's been wonderful to listen to your podcast. I listen to podcasts all the time, so I'm always interested in, how they're conducted and what I could learn. To me, it's like continuing education. So I really appreciate what you've done, because my introduction to the band has introduced me to the whole idea of the band, the community. So it's been a great, just a great experience for me. And as a sociologist who studies community, it's so interesting to see who's in the band. So I think from a sociological perspective, all these community groups that work sort of independently with volunteers and provide such service to the community, such a valid part of what makes a community rich and vibrant and engaging, and a way for people to enter into the community, meet other people that they might not otherwise have met. So it's a great way for social glue. That's what I think about, very often. And I think for me, the band, and I know we're going to talk about it later, but as somebody who's always sort of thought about lifelong learning, the idea of joining a band like this would have never occurred to me. I'll be 75 next month. It would have never occurred to me earlier in my life.
Wow.
Ever.
How cool.
Ever.
And one of the things you're striking for me is it's jumping out, because Davis's background in theater is a music man. And of course he says, how to solve all the problems of the community of this town.
Yeah.
Make a band. We need a
band.
boys band,
Yeah.
and he was just a shyster right from the very
that's
beginning.
all he was. Yeah.
And in the end, it turns out it really does help.
Yeah, really, it does. It brings
wasn't
the
his
community
intention
together
at all.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So you didn't play a musical instrument in particular before the band experience you're going through now?
I played guitar since I was 14.
Oh, okay.
Sort of self-taught, rhythm, acoustic, and then I got an electric guitar, and then I started taking a couple of lessons. And then also sometime during that path, I started playing the mandolin with Josh Bell here in town, and I joined the mandolin ensemble and the mandolin orchestra, and then I had a hand injury, so I had to stay out of that for a while.
Right.
I went back to guitar for a while, but when I approached the Jamestown Band, I asked if I could come and play rhythm guitar. I had a brand new electric guitar. They're like, no, we need a mallet percussionist.
Yeah.
So I said, okay. And then I went to Google and found out what a mallet percussionist was.
Whatever
That's
is.
okay.
Yeah,
We would have had to
right.
look up what a mandolin was. No, not really. But I'm thinking Josh will probably be one of our guests along the way because he's
you would be
really
a good one,
developed.
yeah. I
this
took lessons
mandolin
with Josh
band.
for a while, too.
Yeah,
I did. I took mandolin lessons. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know
Yeah,
that
you
this
didn't know that.
connection.
Yeah.
And I have
Yeah.
breakfast with him every Thursday, and
Do you really?
we banter about other things
Oh, that'd be dope.
besides music. But I ended up playing with the CCRI chorus and the mandolin band combined to do the Hallelujah chorus. The first part of the Messiah.
Yeah.
And I played trumpet on the Hallelujah chorus for them.
Yeah.
So just this last fall, it's
Yeah.
just really a small world. So what were some of the courses that you taught there that might be related to this?
Yeah, I got my PhD when I was 50. So I've been teaching part-time, and then somebody suggested that I was a good teacher, so maybe I should get my degree. So I did. And
What were you teaching before?
I worked for corrections, I worked for child welfare, I worked in the governor's office on his staff, I worked in nonprofit, I was in high tech. I did a lot of different things. But when I joined the faculty, because I had such a rich experience in the real world, I taught a lot of classes that had a community connection. Like we would be teaching social problems, and we would be thinking about, like, how do you really reduce the achievement gap? Like, how does that really, how is that done? How is that achieved?
Right, it's a nice thing to say,
It's
but
exactly
try to make it happen, right?
because in sociology, we spend a lot of time thinking about social problems. We can make anybody really depressed. You take a class with a sociologist and you're like, oh my God, there's poverty and racism and
All the
sexism.
things.
Oh my God.
Right.
But
I took philosophy classes for that. It worked quite well. Yeah.
so my classes were all social problems, social solutions. So the students would always be thinking about, here's a social problem, what's been tried, what works, what's promising, and why would that be? Like, how do we understand if something is working to reduce poverty or to clean the environment, whatever it is, why is that working? Is it technology? Is it a cultural change? Is it a normative change? Is there money involved? So a lot of my sociology was very practically oriented for the students. And to me, sociology has given me a way of sort of understanding the world and understanding what's going on in my workplace and helped me to kind of depersonalize it, like it's not all about me. It's about the culture I'm in.
See, that never happened to me. What about you,
I'm
Dave?
kind of lost at this point.
No, it's all about me. Now, what a fantastic, at age 50, you're thinking, wow, what happened, but it was an amazing way of getting into sociology because you did so many different things. And then you had mentioned, I asked, of course, what was your dissertation on? And then that makes perfect sense. So maybe you could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so my dissertation was on how imprisoned women manage their relationships with their children. Right, so the kids would come in to visit the moms
Right.
every Saturday. And so I hung out there for 2 years and examined and looked at how moms tried to maintain a connection, even if they were going to lose the child to child welfare,
Right.
or somebody else was doing the real parenting. What was that like? And also watched, the pain, because women often, when they're in prison, start to reflect like, oh my goodness, I need to step up. If I want to have my child, I need to have some behavior change. So
One would hope that be the motivation, as
Yeah,
opposed to
yeah.
say, thank goodness they're gone.
You know what?
So that's, thank goodness. Well, Dave and I brought up that Dave and I had just played at the Women's ACI.
Yeah.
Romps is the other band that we mentioned that connects us, and it's a 17-piece big band, a swing band, and we got a request to play at the women's prison, and we went and did that. We did a 40-minute set, 45-minute set or so. Yeah, and that's right. There was one that Dave wasn't at,
Yeah,
so
I
I'll have to
was
talk
in the
about
hospital.
it. Right. But it was a great gig. It was a really good audience. Everyone was a little bit nervous about getting in, but once we got in there and got settled, everything was very structured, but not in an intimidating way. And we knew what we had to do. If you had to go to the bathroom, you had to be escorted. And
Yeah.
they told us what was going to happen when the inmates came in. And it was only inmates that chose to come to the performance. And they were a very responsive audience. They were a good response. So I think I see a little bit of what you're talking about, having taught in some urban schools and being involved a little bit of DCYF, not as much as my wife with a school psychologist, and families separating or kids being separated from their parents and living with family members most of the time, but not all the time. And
That's
we
right.
had kids that were homeless. That would just couch surf, go from friend's house to friend's house. It rips your heart out. And the solution for me is always join the band. Be part of the community, because that always, for me, that made me feel, and I use this to recruit as well. Not only will you feel like you're part of the university from the very first day that you arrive, but you'll be walking across campus and the president and other people will say hi to you because they recognize you as being part of the band. So you are completely immersed in the community and also impacting the community, like the pep band, like how many other things have something that will cheer them up, march in and cheer them up.
Yeah.
So a little bit. So the dissertation went well, and then you got the job at Bryant. Was that your only college job?
My first job was at Rhode Island College.
Oh, okay.
Where I had gone as an undergraduate and where I had been teaching as an adjunct.
Okay.
So I taught a lot in the criminal justice program there.
Right.
And then when I went to Bryant, I taught social entrepreneurship and creativity and social solutions and law and society and
now we're
classes.
onto something with the creativity and entrepreneurship. That's what we're doing, starting a podcast. Sure. But tell me a little bit more about the creativity. That sounds fascinating.
Yeah. So I looked, extensively on Google to see if there was anything such as, which was called Sociology of Creativity, and there wasn't. Nobody else had ever taught a class on this. And so what I was trying to do in the class was having students understand that creativity is very much happens in social context. Like if you look at why would some historical periods be more creative? Why would some communities be so creative? Why were people who are very creative usually in contact with other people who are creative? So I was trying to help them understand that creativity is not just an individual idea, that it happens in community, it happens in collaboration, it happens with the right environment.
Well, ideally in collaboration, I could see throughout history, some people that were extraordinarily creative were ostracized too.
Well, yes,
that
absolutely,
could happen too.
Absolutely. But yes, that's absolutely right. So we looked at, the historical period, like when was social innovation great and why was that? Why are some communities not very creative at all? Like what's the sociology around it? So that was fun, and there's a lot of research in terms of what corporations support innovation, which stifle people's ideas. At Bryant, I would come up with ideas, and we would always talk about having a graveyard of good ideas where faculty would present ideas and the administration would bury them quickly. That was the graveyard of good ideas.
Oh,
Maybe
yeah.
every organization has that. Yeah.
Having been in those meetings with the suits, that's it. So going into the entrepreneurship, because Bryant's mostly known, you could take a lot of coursework, the different coursework there, but it's primarily known as a business school.
Yes.
A top business school. It's been around for 100 years, over 100 years now. And we could talk a little bit. Our intro is the song I wrote for Bryant. It was their fight song for a short period of time. And now it's not being used for anything other than our podcast, as far as I know.
Well,
so that's why I reclaimed it. And I was shocked when I went and interviewed there and discovered during the interview I couldn't do the job. There was a conflict I couldn't do. But as I was driving home, I was thinking, I had asked them, what's your fight song? And they said, we don't think we have one. And then someone confirmed before I left that there was no fight song. And when I looked a little bit further, there weren't a number of the schools in your conference, in the athletic conference, don't have fight songs either. Maybe that's why, we could start a trend, and I knew the president very well. So I wrote something, I thought, to get through the suits. How do you get something brand new through one of those meetings? Because if you play the song and one person at that table doesn't like it, it is over.
Yeah.
It's done. So I figured try to come up with something that sounds like really old fashioned and something that maybe was, hidden for years and bring it. We're reviving it, even though that was not part of the story at all. And it worked. He loved it, and the school used it for a while, and then they got a new band director, and that was the graveyard.
The graveyard again.
That's good because we get to use it. I couldn't use it if I'd have to write something else for us.
Yeah,
and what you're hearing is my high school band. The day after that interview, I wrote something up that night. I wrote that song that night, and the high school band sight read it, and that was the first performance of it. And we never really rehearsed it or anything else other than just playing for that one example for the president, and that you're hearing what I sent to him.
It's amazing.
So
Brian, amazing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, isn't there an area now that's referred to as sociomusicology? Is that what they put that together?
Could be.
I think sociomusicology.
Yeah.
I might be saying it wrong, but I did happen to see that in an area I was looking at.
Yeah.
And it's that the concept of music and what what its effect is on society and cultures and things. I think we're in an interesting time where, musically speaking, that we're even farther apart, generationally speaking. I can't relate at all. This is an old guy speaking, but I can't relate at all to the music that the young people are listening to. It's all highly produced. Everybody sounds exactly the same because it's so highly produced. In fact, sometimes they add effects in to make everybody sound exactly the same.
Yeah.
And it doesn't connect with me at all. I'm a percussionist. The rhythms are always kind of nice, but they're the same over and over and over again, So I'm not connecting there. So one of the things that I do think is kind of cool about the town band concept is that you can take people from different generations, you can put them together, and they can play something together and relate to something together. It's not the popular music line or anything like that. It's something that's really kind of unique in that way. We're doing selections. What docs? What is it? What are the pieces we're doing from
Frozen?
From Frozen.
Right.
That was one. The other one
and
was
also
Pirates of the Caribbean.
Caribbean.
Yeah. And there are some young people in the band, and I'm sure they go after band rehearsal. They go out to their car, put on their music. You know what I mean? But it has, it is kind of a cool thing to have a place where people can experience music together. And so that's where these bands like yours, Doc, and the one that I'm with down in Westerly, is that, generations can come together.
Yes. When a younger member of our band, excuse me, asked me, because he doesn't have the history that we have. So when we start playing a song, he's like, "Is this an old song?" Because it's all old to him. Just how old is this song?
Yeah.
And he loves our repertoire.
Oh,
he loves hearing new songs. And when I'm singing along, he's like, "Wow, you know lyrics?" It's like, yeah, you can't help but know lyrics if you grew up when we grew up. It was like lyrics, like everybody knew a common sort of collection of songs.
Well, we're past that time when you wanted to. I mean, there was a period of time if you wanted to hear music, you had to make it.
Yeah.
Or if you were wealthy, you hired someone to come and play it for you.
Right.
And now everyone has it accessible all the time. And there's positives to that and there's negatives to that. Mm-hmm. But I kept thinking, as sociologists, of course, we're building community within the band by doing all that you were just talking about, Dave. Right, it's really strengthening community among the generations. But then it also works at a larger picture with the town. It builds community in the town, and we have a following in that town. We had to change venues because it was too crowded. The fire marshal was going to shut us down. Our hall was too crowded. We had to find a larger hall because the town people were coming, and it was the same people most of the time, and then a couple more would add on. And it continues to grow, which is fantastic. So we're building a community there, and it's all people, mostly people from Jamestown.
Yeah.
Mostly people from that island. So it's kind of a limited population, but still we keep adding on to that, and I think it's wonderful. It's
been so interesting, to go through the first year as a band member. When you start out at the concerts and then you find yourself at the Jamestown Yacht Club.
Yes.
And you're trying to stand up a little straighter.
Yeah, that's right.
Salute the commandant, the commander, whoever it is,
Well, you don't want to be thrown overboard, So.
And then the next week, here we are in the pouring rain at the 4th of July parade, right? Completely soaked to the skin.
Right.
It was so much fun. And then there was the concert before the fireworks, and then, it's like just a wonderful outlet and a unit for the community to organize around. Oh boy, it's the band.
And we needed to show some of the youngsters that, we got wet. So big deal. It was fun. We got wet,
It was really fun.
As opposed to, I'm sure the friends going, what are you thinking? My technology would be ruined. unless I had a waterproof computer, or of course my watch is fine. And
Yeah, no,
Yeah, right.
it was really fun. It was
right,
really
we go out
fun.
and make noise like that.
Yeah.
So you brought up the sociology of creativity. Have you followed that up at all? Like, where is that now? That might be a good
Yeah.
way to wrap up.
Yeah, so I teach at OLLI, Osher Lifelong Learning Institute at URI. It's for
Okay.
people over the age of 55. So all the faculty are members of the community, and we just pose topics. Like I want to teach creative writing or poetry or the history or Willa Cather or whatever it is. So I've been teaching classes there on sociology and creativity in older age. And I have a creativity and play special interest group. So once a month I organize something creative for us to do. So one month we built kits. Another month we went and made a movie. We just came back from a sculpture studio in Jamestown for a meeting with
Right.
Peter Diefenbrock, who made the bunny, the rabbit for Peacedale. Next month we're doing a music jam with Cynthia Burke, who does music improv at the community theater. The next month somebody's teaching us how to build a bridge out of spaghetti. So every
Now that's music.
Well, didn't they try that already, and
I
it didn't
think
work
they
out
did,
so well in
Washington
Providence?
Bridge,
We just
yeah.
had that bridge
Yeah.
that's being taken
Yeah.
down, and
Yeah,
right.
that's how I did
Yeah.
that.
So I, when I do photography and I do creative writing, I publish a little bit. And then music, I do this music and then I play a little around with music technology. So yeah, I just am curious.
Oh,
I like to be
fantastic,
active. Yeah, that's fun.
And I remember people that were forced into retirement, who many of them died shortly after.
Yeah.
Because they just had no purpose.
Yeah.
Like they had no, and now to be retired is like the most wonderful thing.
Yes.
It's great. Don't, well, Lisa's not listening, so we're okay
Yeah, I know,
to say
we're all
that
right for now.
my wife
Yeah,
is
that's
not
fine.
retired, and she's not, everyone else around us here in the room is retired. And she recently had some surgery and was out for 5 weeks and had a taste of retirement, and she really didn't want to
Yeah.
go back to her first day of school. You
I
know,
like referring to retirement as repurposing,
right. There you go.
because I do feel that's the case for me anyway.
Okay.
Nothing
cool.
retiring about it.
That's good.
Yeah. Oh, good. No, I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, it's time to get into. We have the 3 questions that we ask every guest, but I also want to get into more detail about.
Wait a minute. This is our only guest.
Yes. Well, there's going to be.
It's going to be more.
Yeah.
Okay, in anticipation of the many that we're going to have.
Well, between you and I, Dave, we have these imaginary guests that are always with us.
Yes, they're
Oh, lovely.
But I certainly want to get into the side of you that what made you join the band, and what was that experience like? And you stayed, so I'm assuming that it was positive. But the first question we ask everyone is, what was your most memorable experience with a community music ensemble?
Yeah, I think for me the most memorable experience just happened at our last concert when I got to play a solo with the 12-year-old all-state musician Matt, who also plays the timpani and the saxophone and a lot of other things. And that was just wonderful because I got all the way through it. I was mainly on time. And I did well, and I was so excited. I was so excited, and I was like, I can do this. So it was just wonderful. And I would have never imagined doing anything like that when I first took up the glockenspiel. I was
How
like,
about
oh
that?
my God.
Because sometimes, like Dave and I reflected on our past, and you had mentioned something about, what were the first bands that you ran into, right? It's the Portuguese.
Right when I was a little kid, there was
Church bands,
Yeah,
right?
there was the Portuguese marching bands. There was a lot of marching band competition in my town and a lot of Portuguese bands. Because I grew up in West Warwick, in the Portuguese community there.
Right, yeah.
So, and I was telling Don as well earlier that one of my earliest recollections is marching in a little band during the Holy Ghost feast, and my aunt had stitched us little dresses made out of crepe paper with stars and stripes. They were they're very, very cute. But I remember being so proud of being like 6 years old and marching with all the big people.
And the entire town comes out for that.
It was
those
just
are
amazing.
huge.
It was a big thing for me too, an introduction for me into the power of the Portuguese traditions here in this region. When I arrived, they just ordered new uniforms, and they said, "Oh, by the way, you have to raise $1,000 to pay for them." And then my chair called me in, and he said, "Well, you have to pay for our $1,000 too." It's like, oh my gosh! Now all of a sudden I have to raise all this money, and a guy called me up out of the blue from West Warwick and said, "We have dreamed of having the URI band march in our parade. It would be the biggest band that had ever been in a parade." Can we make that work? And he said, we'll send a bus, we'll feed you, and what else? How much? We'll pay you something. What do you need? I said, $1,000. He said, no problem. So it was like, done.
Oh,
I went into
gosh.
my chair. He's probably going, oh, why didn't I ask for $5,000?
Yeah.
But then we went and we did that parade, and I did it because I wanted the students to be as immersed as I was in feeling those same feelings of this is the whole town. This is the whole community has come together because of this, and the kids, they really liked it. And then
that's great.
ate Portuguese food for the first time.
Yeah.
We have a number of
thing.
Portuguese kids in the band, students in the band already.
I did a number of those festivals with the Kentish Guards.
Right,
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
And the Fife Drum Corps, they always invite us. And that's always the big thing, is at the end, the food is spectacular. It's just unbelievable.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so then, and how did participating in a music ensemble affect you? Well, this is all fresh.
Yes. Yeah, it really is. One
Did you find you had a twitch afterwards or anything like that? No, just kidding. Go ahead.
When I took up this brand new instrument, the glockenspiel, I had never been in a community band before. There was like 9 new pieces of music to learn. I didn't read music that well, really slow. Really had trouble like following a score because I had never followed a score before. So I was just lining up all these learning challenges, and then I thought, well, you taught college for 22 years. How would a professor organize learning all of this, considering there's no, joining a band for idiots? Maybe there is.
Well,
Maybe
wait a
there
minute.
should be. But there was just so much to learn, and I was trying to figure out how to organize things. So that took me a little while, and I would find scores and play along with them. Then I taught myself how to use MuseScore so I could transpose some stuff. And I just worked as hard as I can work. And for me, I would always love to go to band practice because that was my learning opportunity.
Sure.
And for the first time in my life, I didn't mind being the dumbest person in the room, which I was, because there was so much to learn.
Oh, there are plenty of other people making
Yeah,
mistakes.
Yeah, he's looking at the French horn player or the guy that's trying to play French horn. I don't know if you know it or not. As a percussionist, I can say playing the bells is a very difficult instrument. You say, well, there's a familiarity, of course, with the keyboard, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. But the problem is you have the music in front of you here, looking up, and then you have the instrument that's laying flat in front of you here, and the bars are about the size of the little ball on the mallet that you are going to use, all right? About the same size. So inevitably, whatever you see on the page, you're going to miss, playing down here. It's a hard instrument to play. Very difficult.
Well, that makes me feel a little better.
Yes.
Thank you.
I hope it did.
Thank you, yeah. But I really loved the learning challenge because I could see, like, I would be progressing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now I feel like I can conquer things, and I'm still thinking pedagogically about what's the best way to practice.
Yeah.
Should I master one piece, and then sort of play through the rest? And then I'll master the next piece, or should I have a little progress on all of it? So these are the debates I have with myself all the time about pedagogy, how to teach
I
myself.
certainly have solutions for those, but it's best when the person does it ergonomically, like on their own.
Yeah,
They figure out how to do it. And sometimes it's the parents that figure out how to do it, along the way. But it's as long as you have some sort of a helper. But I wanted to, in my classrooms, when I taught in the schools, try to develop the students as learners, not as just to play the right note in the concert a month from now.
Right.
Like how do you learn? How do you process it? And I've done this with the younger students too. They think, "Hey, wait a second, you're not helping me." Oh, yes, I am. I told you how to go at it.
Right.
I'm inferring it and go fast. So that reading is the only answer.
Yes.
You have to learn how to read.
Yes.
And then from that, you can expand much quicker. You become an independent learner.
Yeah.
If you can read. So
Yeah.
the readings, I've had parents sit me down with the principal and say, "Why don't you teach them?" Oh, I am.
Right.
And
Yeah.
It's just not what you're thinking. It was not the way you learned, like the same song over and over again and for the first month and then take up the next song, which you were just talking about. And there's some, the state of Texas, not all of them, it's a very big state, but that's one of the methods that they use. Like we're going to learn the first 8 measures today.
Huh.
And then tomorrow we'll learn the next 8 measures, and that's one way to go at it. And they get tremendous results, as an ensemble, challenge what they get as individuals.
Yeah.
And that was always my focus, that it was the individual learner needed to be it. That was the goal, not to get the band to play the right note at the right time.
Yeah.
So I think we already answered the third question.
I said,
what's a big challenge with an ensemble and how was it overcome?
Yeah.
Well, the big challenge was just, like what was that moment that you said, well, how did you come to say, I'm going to try this?
As soon as I went to my first practice and they gave me the glockenspiel and you said, look, there's letters on this. This is going to be helpful for you. And so it's
and
like,
there's only 7 of them too. Like it's not all of them. It's not 24. It's only 7 letters.
So that was great. And, when I looked at the music, I think the hardest challenge for me was counting along.
So rhythm is where I typically start.
Right.
So if I haven't done, we didn't do rhythm tapping, did we?
No, I don't think so.
Oh my gosh. So I could solve that for you.
Well,
I have the solution.
I can count it out, but when like 47 measures are going by and then it's my chance to like hit the bell on beat 3 of measure 158, it's like,
well, that's
you and every percussionist alive has gone through this. The other one that was very different, very briefly, playing Bolero.
Ah.
It has dun 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 dun
oh,
dun
yes.
dun 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 dun. You play that,
yeah,
but over and over and over again
for 20
And
minutes.
so it's written out in the music, and you're looking at it, and you blink. You can't help it. Your eyes blink every once in a while, and you go, "Well, where the heck was I?" Oh no!
Right.
And you just hope you can you get to the end where the whole thing is a big crescendo. It's the same thing over and over again.
Yes.
But then it's a little different at the end, so you want to make sure you do it right.
Yeah.
But oh my goodness, yeah.
Yeah.
The percussionist's nightmare is always he's got the big cymbal crash on beat 4 of measure 99, and he doesn't do anything before that, but it's there. And if he doesn't play it, the director is going to shoot daggers at him.
Well, and I'm a trumpet player, so I played in orchestra,
Right.
and had 100 measures rest to count out. And in measure 98, the director goes, "Okay, stop. Let's run some of that again." After you've counted 98, 2, 3, you didn't do that to me. But that is a very specific skill. And talking about self-discipline, to be disciplined enough, you sit there and count everything and stay in track. I played Les Mis when it first came out, was available for high schools at local high school here, and they did a fantastic job with it. But that part was so challenging rhythmically all the way through, and there were a lot of similarities that I counted every measure out all the way through. I think we did 5 performances. I counted every measure because I couldn't risk getting lost.
Yeah.
Or being not so much lost as unsure of that next entrance. And so I love that responsibility.
Yeah.
But, and that everyone's going to hear whether I do it right or wrong.
Yeah.
And you just got kind of caught up in I love using that piece to introduce people to, I've done that in the schools as well, that kids had never played mallets before.
Yeah.
And we do this called Mallet Maniacs.
Yes.
And it's a fantastic piece that I walk in and show them, here, you da 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 da, and they instantly can do that.
Yes.
The main theme, they could do that. So they're thinking already, I could play this.
Right.
And then you just have to add in the stuff in between in the counting, and there's some challenges there too. But the most important part is you need to get in everyone's mind that I could do this.
Right.
And this could be fun.
Yes.
So I'm so glad that you're having fun with it.
Oh, I'm having so much fun. It's like a highlight of my week. I love coming to practice. I was talking to Matt, our 13-year-old saxophonist, timpanist, and whatever. And I was saying, I love to practice. And he said, I love to practice too. It's my only moment of peace and quiet in the day.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
And I
interesting.
thought, this young man hates not hates, but he's not into video games. He loves the sound of music. I mean, the music that we're playing. He's such kind of an unusual young man. So I'm delighted he's in the band.
Well, I've heard that before. Someone said a wise old man in a young boy's body.
Yeah. He's
Something like
terrific.
that. I've run into a couple kids like that before. A famous composer was working as a guest conductor for something, and it was the timpanist. And he came up to me afterward and he said that that's a wise old man in a young boy's body.
When Matt joined the band, one of the trumpet players said to him, are you coming to the, what was it? Are you coming to the outcomes? We want to play for drinks. Matt is like, what does it mean to play for drinks? What kind of band is this?
Well, in the Portuguese bands, that might have meant something a little bit differently, right?
A little differently.
It was funny.
All right. Well, this has been a wonderful visit, and I'm so glad that we invited you to come along, and so glad you're listening to us too, and so glad that everyone else is listening. Keep those comments coming. Probably the most direct route right now with the social media is the info@townbandbanter.com, the email. I'll have that in the materials beneath. And we'll look forward to our next episode. We're still debating exactly who that guest is going to be, but I think we have a couple great ones lined up. And we'll be interested in hearing your suggestions for topics and guests as well. So in the meantime, just keep on playing.